Welcome to our webinar, Discover What Bitcoin is and How to Buy It. I'm very happy to have you all here. I'm Andy from the Mentors Office podcast. And in the name of the podcast, I want to tell you that we're really excited about this new kind of content that we are going to create. And yeah, this is a very interesting topic. So let's begin. So we're going to talk about different things. So first, we want to talk about what is the problem and why Bitcoin solves it. Then the solution, what is Bitcoin? How does it solve the problem? And then we're gonna go to the cool part where we talk about the different alternatives to buy Bitcoin. And then we're gonna do the demo so you can learn how to do it. And at the end, we're gonna do a little bit of some recommendations. And also, if you have any questions, I will be happy to answer them. Okay, so let's begin by understanding what is the problem that Bitcoin wants to solve, and so we can understand why Bitcoin, right? So one of the problems that Bitcoin wants to solve is inflation. Inflation, it's a very bad problem that affects the poor and the rich. It's a problem that affects countries in Latin America, in Africa, in Europe, right now, all over the world, but over decades, and in this century, it has affected especially countries in Latin America, Africa, and in Asia. And it is a problem that is very painful for the rich, for the poor, for everyone. So it is a very important necessity and a very important problem to solve. So what is inflation? Inflation is a monetary phenomenon. Basically, it is a phenomenon where money loses its value. Being more technical, it means that the supply of money is greater than the demand for money. So that happens when, for example, central banks grow the amount of money faster than the demand, and that happens. Or also it can happen when people start not trusting their currencies and the demand just falls. So to understand this kind of problems, it is easier to change your mindset. If you live in United States, in France, in Japan, some of these big countries that normally they don't experience inflation, maybe this year, but normally they don't experience really high inflation. It is gonna be hard for someone in the United States to understand it because they don't have these necessities, right? So if you don't have the necessities, it's not so easy to relate. So try to change your mindset, for example, to someone in Argentina, and that is going to help you a lot. So in here, I'm going to put some examples related to Argentina, Venezuela, and Turkey. But this also is very similar to what happens in regions like Africa and Asia, okay? But I'm more experienced and familiar with these cases, so that's why I mentioned them. So in Argentina and in Venezuela, for a long time, they have experienced high inflation. This is not a thing about, the problem with the supply of oil and stuff, no, because that is a problem that happened this year or the past year, but it's not a problem that happened, from the start of the century to now, right? And as you can see in these graphs, inflation is really high in this country. So for example, in Argentina, from the 2000 to the 2010, they have an average of 10 to 20% inflation. Then from 2010 to 2016, they have like between 20 and 40, and now they are in the range of 50 and more. So it's pretty bad. And also in Venezuela, which is hyperinflation, really, really crazy. For example, in 2018, in January, for example, they had 7,000%. Or in April 2018, they had 8,000% of inflation, according to the estimations of Professor Steve Hopke from Johns Hopkins University. So as you see, it's a really, really bad problem. And why is this so bad? It's so bad because imagine that your parents, for example, that lived in these countries, and they worked all of their lives and they saved for their retirement. With this kind of inflation, basically they lost all of their savings. They don't have anything for their retirement. So it's really bad. Let me show you the example in Turkey. In Turkey, it's also a similar phenomenon. So, for example, the official inflation, that is here the line in the curve in orange. You can see that the official inflation is around 10%, close to 30% in 2019. The other one is an estimate by Johns Hopkins University that is a little bit more trustworthy. And as you can see, for example, in 2018, they reached around 100% of inflation. And this is pretty bad. So basically, inflation is a problem of bad money, right? And what happens is that the central banks start supplying a lot more money than is actually wanted. So imagine, for example, in an economy where we're all trading coins of gold, right? Imagine someone that could have the power of, for example, and of turning with plastic. They try to create really similar coins to gold, but it's just plastic, and they start putting those into economy and using that to give you those coins. Obviously, you know that those coins, they are doing that from nothing, right? Just new plastic coins out of nothing, and they actually create no value. But what that creates more money, it's that basically it dilutes your money and devaluates the value of your money, because now there's the same services and goods, but more money, and we know that that doesn't create any value. So, for example, try to think if printing money or creating money out of nothing could solve all of our problems, then governments wouldn't have to don't have to tax you, right? Taxes wouldn't be necessary. You just had to, let's say, print more money, and that would solve the problem. Obviously, that doesn't happen. Or if we could just print money and that created value, then we could just create our all of the money and never work again. So that's obviously not happening. Okay, and here you can see that in other countries, like in Africa, for example, Zimbabwe or Sri Lanka, in Asia, they have 300%, 100%. Turkey is right now in 100%. Venezuela 100%. And if you see, all of these countries normally are in Africa. Well, there are some countries in Europe, Asia, and Latin America. So this is a problem that affects a lot of countries, and is a big problem to solve. Now let's talk another problem that is caused by bad money and bad central banks. So what happens is the devaluation. Devaluation is basically that your currency loses value against another currency. And two good examples that I'm very familiar with is Colombia and Argentina. Especially Argentina is really bad. So in Argentina, because they are printing a lot of money out of nothing, we can see the case that in 2002, $1 was 1.70 Argentinian pesos, right? And now $1 in 2022, $1 equals 239 Argentinian pesos. Crazy, right? So that means that the amount of dollars that you can buy with the Argentinian pesos basically were reduced by 99.3%. That's a lot. So to give a little example, let's say that in 2002, you could buy $100 with 170 pesos, Argentinian pesos. Right now, if you use 170 Argentinian pesos, you can only buy 70 cents. Okay, so from buying $100 to 70 cents. it is just crazy. So if you have all of your savings in Argentine pesos, basically you lost everything. It is really hard to buy anything, to import. Oh, it's a mess. And in Colombia, my country, it also something really similar happened in a term of, in a period of 10 years. So in 2010, $1 was 1,826 Colombian pesos, and in 2022 is $1 is 4,001 and 141 Colombian pesos. So that means that the purchase power in dollars reduced by 55.9%. It is just crazy to see that basically you can now buy less than half of what you can buy, or what you could buy in 2010, sorry. So the computers, the cars, if you want to travel, medicines, no, it's just doubled basically. So that's one of the problems of bad money and irresponsible monetary policies. Another important problem that Bitcoin tries to solve is remittances. Remittances is a very big market in the world. According to the World Bank, remittances expected to low and middle income countries in 2021 was reached $589 billion, and that's a lot of money. And it shows the really big need of families in other countries sending money back to their families in their home countries. And this is important in many regions, Africa, Asia, and Latin America. And the problem with remittances is that the cost to send remittances is high. For example, according to the World Bank, the cost for sending money internationally is around 6.4% on average in the first quarter of 2021. And that is pretty high, right? Imagine like you've sent money to your family and that the cost would be around 6.4%. So it's pretty huge, and it leaves a very big opportunity to be solved. One big case that I want to mention is the case of Venezuela. A lot of people, Venezuela is in a very bad economic situation, and a lot of people have migrated from the country. And those people that have migrated have to send money to their families so they can live, right? Otherwise, they could not live and live without those remittances. So the thing in Venezuela is that the cost to send money using the legal financial market is really high. The reason for that is that the government controls the exchange rates, and the difference between the real exchange rate and the official exchange rate set by the government. When I mean real, I mean the one set in the streets, by normal people in the black market, or just when regular people. The difference between the official exchange rate and the one in the street can be, up to 50, 100%. So it is a ridiculous difference between the exchange rates. So if you use the traditional, system, you're gonna lose a lot of money, right? So that's why people don't use it, and people are mainly using things like the black market and some other ways. But the problem about the black market is that the commission can be on average 4%, which is really high. Imagine that you send money, $100 to your parents, and they charge you $40 for that. So it's huge. It is slow. 48 hours can take, and because the black market, sometimes you have to do it through, with shady people, right? So it can be unsafe. So there is a very big opportunity for Bitcoin to try to solve that using systems to try to lower the costs, which I'm going to talk about that using, its digital technologies. Another problem is that if states, if governments have the monopoly of money, as it happens now, they can censor, political opponents, etc. Because, well, they basically, because they have a central bank is basically a system where the government is the main bank, and as a main bank, they can control all of the other banks, and they set policy, so they can censor other banks, etc. And with special laws, for example, like in a law that they created for fighting terrorism in Canada, they're also using it for things that, well, are for many not considered terrorism, like the trucker protests in Canada, but they use it. So basically what happened was that, for example, GoFundMe removed the donation page from the Canadian trucker protest. So they could not receive any funds to continue the protest and stuff. And so that becomes like a way of censorship and a way to fight political opponents. Okay. So maybe you don't agree with this case related to Canada, but think about it from the perspective of, maybe what if a dictator like the one in Cuba or North Korea or something, just want to attack and basically crush their opponents. They just, use their money and shut everything away and take all of the money away from them by freezing their bank accounts and stuff. So this is a very important problem that is censorship and allowing more freedom for other political groups and on other organizations. So that is the problem that we have and that Bitcoin and good money wants to solve. But before going into that, let's talk about what is good money. So what is good money? What is money? Let's begin by that. So money is a common medium of exchange. Basically, that is the main purpose of this technology called money, or tool called money. And that to better understand why money was needed, or what problem did it solve, was that imagine direct exchange. So direct exchange was the economy, the primitive economy that existed a long time ago. So in that economy, for example, let's say that people only traded with commodities directly. So for example, let's say that Annie and I wanted to trade, and Annie made shoes, and I had cows. So basically what we needed to do was exchange a cow for a shoe, for example. And that was the trade that happened. But there is a problem, right? And is the problem that there are many problems that happen there. And one of those problems is the problem of double coincidence. So basically, you need to find someone that wanted what you had and that had what you wanted. So basically, to put in an example, let's say Annie, my co-host, let's imagine that she doesn't like cows and she doesn't like meat, right? So if that happened and if she had shoes, then we couldn't exchange anything. We couldn't do business because I didn't have what she wanted. So in that case, I would have to spend a lot of time looking around for someone that had shoes and wanted cows, right? So that's really costly, and that made exchange really hard. So to decrease the costs of exchange and making it quicker, faster, cheaper, they started to think, okay, what if we do indirect exchange? So for example, let's say I had asparagus and he had shirts, right? And we wanted to exchange, but Annie didn't want asparagus. What could we do? Well, I know that Annie wants salt because maybe a lot of people need salt. So I could find salt, right? And exchange the salt for the shirt. And that way I could do those kind of indirect exchange. So I would exchange my asparagus for the salt for the shirt, and we were all happy. So that's basically money, a commodity that it was what it was, a commodity that you can exchange, and that basically was wanted by almost everyone and was accepted as a medium of exchange. And that made, that was what made possible specialization, and a very, very diversified economy like we have today. So one of the question is, why gold, for example? Why gold became the standard and the best money at a time, and still is considered as the best money for many, right? So in the past, there were a lot of different things, different commodities were considered money. For example, oxen, the meat of oxen was also money. Barley was money. Silver, gold, right? But what made one better than the other? Let's see. So for example, durability, right? For example, let's say that you use barley or meat, right, as money. The problem is that it spoils, right? So you can store money for a long time, and it gets damaged and stuff. So it's not a good money, right? Because of that reason. Also, let's think about portability. So oxen, people had oxen as money. How hard it is to transport an oxen, right? Really, really hard. So that's why, for example, gold was so easy, because you could make coins and it was really portable. Divisibility. Obviously, if you have an oxen, you can't, split an oxen by half unless you kill it. But if it is alive, you can do that, obviously. So you need something that could be divided, because, and let's say that you wanted just one piece of bread. Obviously, you're not going to exchange one whole oxen for a piece of bread. Or let's say that you also that an oxen is worth like 100 kilos of bread. What would you do with 100 kilos if you just want one piece of bread, right? It makes no sense. So you need it to be divisible. And uniformity, that with coins, you could make coins of the same size, etc., and of a stable value, not seasonal. For example, that what happens with, for example, barley or tobacco that was used as money was that, you could easily create a lot of barley, and and also there were seasons where of the production of barley went up because of the of agriculture. So if you increase the supply of money a lot, basically it destroys the value of money. So as I mentioned, gold became the standard, but there was a problem also with gold, that obviously if you need to be big exchanges, for example, for a house or something, you needed to transport a lot of gold, some way or another, and that was really hard. So yeah, that was really hard, and people used to store their gold in banks. That was one of the main purpose of banks, just to store value, to store gold. So people figure out, and banks, that okay, what if I give you a receipt for your gold, meaning, okay, I recognize that you just deposited like 1 ton of gold in my bank, and instead of needing to transport 1 ton of gold to your neighbor to buy the house, you could just give him the receipt, and that is how dollars and money and paper money was born. But politicians obviously figured out that, oh, okay, what if you could just make paper receipts out of nothing, right? And that's why they decided to move away from gold and the gold standard. So what is money? What is the solution? And how does it solve the problems that I mentioned? Okay, so the first one is that Bitcoin is basically the separation of state and money. We want to create private money that is not in the hands of politicians. We don't trust politicians in many countries like Argentina, like Colombia, Venezuela, Turkey. They can be trusted. Their monetary policy is really bad. They print a lot of money, and basically because they have huge deficits, they spend a lot more than what they receive in taxes. They need another way to finance that, and is through the printing of money. So we wanted something like that to solve inflation, to solve devaluation. We want with good money that just one central bank goes crazy and starts printing a lot of money and supplying more money than is demanded. We want someone that is more impartial, and that's why we wanted private money. Another thing is that important of the separation of money and state is that we don't want censorship of state using money, right? So we don't want, like in the case of Canada, that they can just freeze the bank accounts of any kind of political opposition. So or for example in Venezuela, that's what they do. So we don't want that. We don't want the state to have that much censorship power and just basically take with so much power that they can basically take off all of the money of people and freeze it. As Milton Friedman said, money is too important to be left to central bankers. It's a fact, right, that many countries have really bad central bankers, and that's why we wanted private money and not in the hands of state. The other thing about the solution of Bitcoin is it is good money, it is hard money, because it has a fixed supply of 21 million, and it's gonna not pass from that. So if we have limited supply, at least what we know is that it's not gonna suffer inflation, because someone just decided to print double the amount of money available to finance things or for things. So we can be pretty sure that it's going to be good for storing, or at least you are going to be pretty sure that it's not going to, your savings are not going to be go away because of that. And the other good thing is that because Bitcoin is decentralized, no owner and trustless, we can be sure that censorship is going to be a lot harder, because if there's no owner, if there's no centralized power, censorship and arbitrary decisions become really hard to make. And also because you don't have to trust anyone, because the problem right now with central banks is that you have to trust that the central bank is good. And in the case that is not, then it becomes a huge problem. So to better understand the solution, let's try to understand and compare it. What is not Bitcoin, and compare it with another currency. So Bitcoin versus paper dollar, right? Or dollars. So Bitcoin has limited supply to 21 million. It would never go past that, while the dollar is an unlimited supply. And that is one of the problems that basically explains the current inflation situation. Because of the pandemic, the government wanted to give a big stimulus and to help a lot of people. Their intentions could be good, but they basically, to do that, they had to create money out of nothing, right? So create a lot of money out of nothing, and basically that destroyed the value, the savings of millions of people, especially the poor people. So that's really bad. So Bitcoin is private money versus dollar, that is state money. So private money, Bitcoin has no owner, but everyone that participates in the Bitcoin, every miner, every node, every person that owns it is basically the owner. There is no ownership, but it is private. It doesn't belong to a government. The other cool thing is that Bitcoin is decentralized. There's no head, no owner. And that is different from the dollar, that basically dollar is controlled by politicians and you have to trust them, right? If the politicians are not good, then too bad for you. So you have to put a lot of trust in politicians, and also that gives them a lot of power. What in Bitcoin, everyone doesn't like the actors for much, that they have a lot of money or a lot of mining power. They don't have absolute power. And that is one important point, because if power is decentralized, it is really hard to change policies. And that's why it's really hard to change things in Bitcoin. But that is good, because that can give the owners, or the owners of the asset, security that it is not going to change a lot. The policies, the supply is not going to change from one year to another, and it's going to be really stable. Well, in the dollar, the policies change very quickly because everything is controlled by the guy that runs the central bank. So if the central banker wants to double the amount of money, he just can do it in one day, no problem. And the problem with dollars, as we have seen, is that well, if it's controlled by state, they can do it for censorship. Sometimes you can say that it can be a good reason, like for example, fighting a tyrant or something. But you know, it's too much power. Sometimes they can do it to a bad person, but sometimes they can censor a good person. And another thing is that the dollar is a state monopoly, so it faces no competition, while Bitcoin is subject to competition, and that can give you some security that it is good money, because you know Bitcoin is just not, you know, money because the government makes it mandatory or it puts you in jail if you don't use it. No, Bitcoin has to compete with state currencies, with other cryptocurrencies, with everything, and the competition is really hard. And in an environment that is so competitive, so hard, Bitcoin is able to thrive. So that gives you, you know, it's like in football, right? So much competition, and if a player is still at the MVP, the top player, that gives you a lot of confidence that it must be good money because it has a lot of competition and it has survived. What the dollar, you know, who knows, would the dollar survive if it was competitive in a competitive market, if it was not mandatory? Who knows? Another thing is digital dollars, or the central CBDC, that means central bank digital currencies. And one of the points and one of the questions that I had, for example, when I was beginning with Bitcoin was, okay, maybe it's all about digital currency, right? So what if the dollar becomes digital? Would that kill Bitcoin? You know, that was a question. And the answer is no. You know, it's not just about being digital, you know, and the benefits of being digital, that makes things easier, cheaper, but it's not just about that. And that's why digital central bank digital currencies are not going to kill it. So let's see why. So with a central bank digital currency, there's no privacy. With Bitcoin, Bitcoin's transparent. You can see every transaction in the web. So privacy is not perfect in Bitcoin either. So that's if you are a criminal and stuff, it's not very good for you for privacy reasons, right? But it creates more privacy because at least you don't have to buy Bitcoin to hold Bitcoin or something. You don't have to give your name, your ID, and a lot of stuff, right? So your transactions are public, but there's a little bit more of privacy. It's not perfect privacy in Bitcoin. The other thing is that in Bitcoin, your keys, your coins, means that if you own the keys to your coins, keys are something related to cryptography. That that it's basically, think about it as a key, as a password. That the one that has that password is the one that controls the coins. So in Bitcoin, if you have the coins, no matter if it's the richest guy in the world, they can't take away or the best hacker or the biggest miner or whatever. They can't take your money away if you own that password. But in CBDC, that won't happen. You know, it's not your money. It's all government money. With Bitcoin, there are no restrictions, right? Because it's your keys, your coins. But with the fear with digital currency and what is, for example, happens in China, is that they can put restrictions to what you can buy. So, for example, they could say, okay, cigarettes are not healthy, so you have a limit of what you can buy, and that they can easily enforce that with a digital currency. So that's scary. Or, for example, they say, okay, meat is not healthy, and they can restrict that, right? They can basically enforce that really easily. Or, for example, let's think about what happens today with credit cards, is that you are not allowed with many credit cards to buy crypto. So we see it already with credit cards. Imagine if they had more power to do that, they could basically prohibit, say what you can buy and what you can't, and how much can you buy of that. And the other thing is that with the CBDC, a central bank or a government could freeze all of your money with the touch of a button. That can happen with Bitcoin. Now, stable coins, right? One of the things that like the stable coin dollar, and one of the things that it appears and is really useful for many people. I'm not saying this bad, but the thing is that they say a stable value, right? But there are some drawbacks also. So, for example, a stable coin dollar depends on the Fed, right? Depends on the policy of the central bank. So if the central bank decides to print a lot of money, it's going to devalue, right? Then lose its value. Well, Bitcoin is independent, right? It doesn't depend in any central bank. So in stable coins, you have to trust the company. So for example, USDT, you have to trust the company that created that cryptocurrency. You have to trust the CEO. You have to trust that they're doing things right. While in Bitcoin, you don't have to trust anyone. It is decentralized. There's no one is the owner, and by design, you can trust that it would work. And the problem with being owned by a company like the stablecoin dollar is that it depends on the country jurisdiction where the company operates. So a country can pass a law and change how the currency works. In Bitcoin, there is no jurisdiction. It's totally decentralized in every country in the world. It works. So even if one country bans it or something, they can't enforce anything. Okay, so let's continue. Okay, and this is an important just idea. So why is our money so terrible? It is because money is a state monopoly. Therefore, there is no penalty to a provider of money for doing a lousy job. That is from Ludwig von Mises, a Nobel laureate economist. And he's right. For example, right now, what's happening, inflation in the United States, for example, it's the fault of the central banker, but nothing happens. He like the chairman of the central bank doesn't lose his job or anything. So if they do a bad job or good job, nothing happens. So let's go to the fun part. Alternatives to buy Bitcoin. So I identified 4 different ways to buy Bitcoin. For example, there's one that is Coinbase, that is those big exchanges. There's MoonPay. MoonPay is also like an exchange, but it doesn't offer like a platform to own. It's just a place where you can buy and transfer it to your wallet. There's LocalBitcoins and Bisq. So this is pretty interesting. Coinbase and MoonPay are centralized, while LocalBitcoins and Bisq are more decentralized, and Bisq is totally decentralized. So that makes it really, really interesting. So let's see. So let's compare the price. The thing is that Coinbase and MoonPay are usually high priced, while LocalBitcoins, the price is lower, and the same in Bisq. Now let's see, it's related to privacy. KYC means know your customer. So if they ask for your ID, your passport, bank account, etc. In Coinbase, yeah, they ask for that. In MoonPay, yep, they ask for that, and in LocalBitcoins, they also ask for it. So there isn't the things that you're doing there is not private at all. But in Bisq, they don't ask for KYC, so it is a very private way of buying Bitcoin, and that is one of the reasons that is liked by many people. Freedom to transact. So how easy is to buy Bitcoin in those places? Not so easy in Coinbase and MoonPay. So for example, if you want to buy it with a credit card in Coinbase and MoonPay, they just allow you small amounts, for example, like $100. And if you want to buy more, you have to call your bank, so it's like 30 minutes calling your bank and, asking them for permission to buy. It's really, really hard. So that is one of the drawbacks. And also there are many credit cards that don't allow you at all to buy crypto. So, it's not so easy to buy Bitcoin with those. Uh, but with LocalBitcoins and Bisq, it's really easy. You just need your bank account, and because it's peer to peer, so LocalBitcoins and Bisq is peer to peer. Is basically, let's say Annie and I could directly exchange, and LocalBitcoins and Bisq just became a place where we can meet, basically. But they can't enforce anything. They can prohibit us from using our bank accounts on anything. So transaction privacy in LocalBitcoins, MoonPay, and Coinbase is very low because they have KYC. Bisq, they don't ask for anything, so the transaction privacy is pretty high. On security, we say the Coinbase, MoonPay, and LocalBitcoins is high. It's pretty robust. You can be pretty sure that everything's going to go okay. Bisq, it's still a pretty good platform, but because it doesn't have any KYC, let's say that security decreases a lot, but they have a lot of cool things that make sure that it is secure. So security is medium, but it's good. So depending on the type of user that you are, you may choose one or another. For example, traders, if you want to do, all you want to do is trade in short term, then Coinbase is going to be a good thing, and you want to own a lot of different coins and trade and sell them really quickly. So if you're a short-term investor and trader, Coinbase is going to be good for you. MoonPay, I use MoonPay, but mainly MoonPay, is used more for platforms and for wallets to allow the users to buy it, but it's really expensive. And if you want to really save money, what you want to do is invest in Bitcoin and save your money in Bitcoin, because you want to store your be a long-term investor in Bitcoin, or save your money in the long term for Bitcoin. LocalBitcoins and Bisq would be a really good option for you. One thing that I want to mention about Coinbase is that be really careful with Coinbase, because if you store your Bitcoin in there, you can lose it, because if Coinbase goes bankrupt, basically you can lose everything, because when you store your Bitcoin in Coinbase, you're basically they become the owners of your coins. So be very careful. Remember, not your keys, not your coins. And in the case of Coinbase, it's definitely not your keys. So first recommendation when buying Bitcoin: not your keys, not your coins. And that happens a lot. Let's see this meme: I own Bitcoin, but it is an exchange. Definitely, you're not the owner of your Bitcoin, right? The only way that you own your Bitcoin is that you own the keys. If you control the keys, no one, not even the government, can take away your Bitcoin. So a key is basically like the password or something like that, okay? So if you want to really own them, if you don't want to have the risk of losing it, or if the company where you store it goes bankrupt, then owning the keys is very important for you. Second recommendation: be careful with platforms that give yield on your Bitcoin. High returns means high risk. You can lose everything. So be very careful about this. There was a problem recently with a company called Celsius, and basically they promised that if you store the Bitcoin in there, and they will give you yield. It's valid, right? But you have to know that it's not for free, right? The only way that they can give yield, right, is by investing your Bitcoin. So basically what they're doing is they're investing your Bitcoin in there, and if the company goes bankrupt or there's any problem, you can lose everything. So be very careful about yield and think about it really well, because you can lose your money, because it's an investment. With every investment, you have a risk. So if you don't want risk, then don't put your money in platforms that give yield, okay? You only invest what you can afford to lose. So this is very important. If the price of Bitcoin changes a lot, and there is no 100% security with anything, obviously, in the world. So only invest what you can afford to lose, as in everything, as with stocks, as with, you know, a business, a house, whatever. Only put money that you can really afford to lose in case that something bad happens. For example, don't put your rent, right, or something. Put some extra money that you can use for saving or something, and that you're willing to lose if something bad happens. And well, the recommendation where to buy it, one of those is LocalBitcoins, and I want to do a demo for that one. So I'm gonna show LocalBitcoins and how to trade with LocalBitcoins. One second. Okay, so I'm gonna put the video. Okay, so this is the website of LocalBitcoins. In there, you can see all the offers of the let me go back. All of the offers of the different people that are offering. So basically, this is just normal people like you and me that is offering, and they put a price and the limits in which you can, how much money they are offering to sell. So okay, one second, please. Give me just 1 second, please. Okay, guys, sorry, I'm back. So yeah, these are the offers. You select the offer that is the best for you. So for example, in here, you can choose by the best price, etc. And yeah, that is something that I recommend is, you know, always try to do a little bit of research for each of the salespeople. For example, in here, you can see that the 6,000 or in here, the 10,000, that means that this user has completed more than 10,000 transactions in LocalBitcoins, and it has 100% good results. So it's basically a reviews. So this one is pretty trustworthy. So let's say that I want to choose that one, and I can see, for example, the reviews. So people after completing the transactions leave a review for the trader, and there are thousands for this one. So I can be pretty sure that it is good. And so be pretty careful. Try to see that it has a lot of positive reviews, and try to look at the negative reviews. And if there is something, try to read them. If there is something really that worries you, then don't trade with that person. But normally, if it has a really high rating, you're good to go. Okay, and if it has good recent reviews, we're good to go. So that's my tip. Like, look that the person has, like in the case of this one, like a lot of transactions, good score, like 100% or 99, and that it has good recent reviews, like I showed. Like you can see here, there are a lot of good recent reviews with the comments, and make sure also that the negative comments are not too many, and also not that not recent, like at least. Okay, so let's say that I trust this one, so I put buy, and here I can see the terms. It's in Spanish, obviously, but well, it's very similar. So they put the terms in here, the terms and conditions, and here you put how much Bitcoin do you want to buy. Sometimes, for example, they ask for your ID, they ask for some things for if it is a first transaction to be able to trust you, but there's no not a big problem, okay? And in here you just put, and here they tell you how to pay, for example, with this bank or this app. So basically that, yeah, this is the screen, you know, the terms and conditions. Sometimes they ask for a selfie, for, you know, something to your ID. And if you want to accept those terms, then you just put the amount and then click on accept conditions, basically. Let's fast forward a little bit. Okay, so let's say that we accepted. We click on accept. And it takes us to the trading, okay? So basically here, as you can see, you can send messages to the person to communicate. And the thing that you need to do is first pay, right? So for example, in here, you will have to pay to this bank the amount that is supposed to be paid. So what you do is, let's say you open your app, you send the money to the account that this person is going to tell you in the chat. You can see it right now, but later on, the person is going to send the account information and you need to send it. Be really careful, double check that you're sending the right amount, double check that this is the right account number. And when you do it, you just confirm the payment. You know, there's a button lower down in the second step and you just click it. As soon as you do the transfer, you know, with your bank app, be sure to click as fast as you can or as soon as possible the button to confirm the payment. Looking there, you can see me sending like a message, and in here I completed the Bitcoin transaction. So I completed it. Everything's okay. The Bitcoin were released after I because when you click that you paid, the seller is gonna review or check that he or she received the funds, and if everything went correctly, they release. And at the end, you just leave a review if it was positive, bad, etc. And after that, what I recommend is that if you're planning to buy, so buy the Bitcoin that you want, and after that, transfer it to a wallet, right? To a wallet where you own your keys. So basically, this is not a platform that I recommend for storing your Bitcoin in the long term. It's just, you know, while you're transacting and buying it. For example, if you plan to buy many times in a week, well, buy it, store it for a week, and after that, transfer everything to your wallet where you own your keys. Remember, not your keys, not your coins. So that is the local Bitcoin standard. And the other thing is Bisq. Bisq is a completely decentralized software to exchange Bitcoin, to buy Bitcoin. Basically, it is not owned by any company. This is not a company. This is just an open source project. And it is controlled by a DAO. A DAO is a decentralized autonomous organization. Basically, it's something where people self-organized using the blockchain. And it's very, very, very interesting. So this has no jurisdiction. There's no company, and that's why. And there is no KYC or know your customer, so you don't have to reveal your identity. So, what is Bisq? Bisq, well, as I say, primarily it's just for exchanging Bitcoin for fiat. Fiat is just government money. And this is for people that want the highest degree of control and also that want more freedom and more privacy in exchanging. This is more for savers, for people that want to buy Bitcoin in the long term, not ideal for day traders or algorithm traders, because the amounts are small. That the amount, well, it's small, but for a big company. So, for example, for a hedge fund that wants to buy like 1 billion in Bitcoin, well, definitely it's really hard to buy 1 billion here. It's just you're just exchanging here with the normal people. So, for example, Annie and I could exchange via this platform. So it's just regular people selling their Bitcoin or buying their Bitcoin. And also because the fees are, well, the fees are not precisely for for traders. So if you want to do a lot of transactions per day, it's going to be very expensive. So it's not for short trading or fast trading. And let me before moving forward, let me show you the interface. So this is the program. I have it. Basically, you can buy or sell, and for example, you can have the different currencies. So US dollar, Colombian peso. As you can see, this is all people, real people. Euro, Indian rupee, Russian ruble. This is just regular people offering. Not every, obviously, no, you can't find offers in every currency because it's just normal people. Normally, is a lot of people use it that use dollars, and you can see the different offers. So, for example, they say in here you can see the amount of money of Bitcoin that the minimum amount to buy, or the maximum amount to buy, and they show it. So, for example, this guy sells with $295 in Bitcoin to 590, and we can see the payment methods. So not normally there are just a few payment methods that are really secure, whose transaction can be reversed. So that can give security to a buyer that, for example, you send money, but later on you can't just call to customer support and say, hey, it was a mistake, and revert the transaction. So there are only a few payment methods that are really secure and that give a lot of security to buyers, to sellers, sorry. So for example, Stripe, SL, US money orders, also Amazon gift cards. So yeah, and if you, let's say, you can see how old it is, and if you want to buy, you just, well, take over, right? That's it. And you start. And also you can sell your own Bitcoin. So for example, in Colombian peso or in Argentinian, in US dollars, and you can create your own offer, right? Or you can create your own offer, or take one of these ones to sell your Bitcoin. So this is a pretty cool platform. It's amazing that is so open software, decentralized, no jurisdiction. Amazing, amazing. It's pretty secure. Try to use it. When you start, just start with small amounts. But this is a pretty good platform. So the two platforms that I recommend, if you want to invest long term, right, and stuff, are LocalBitcoins and Bisq. Also, if you're a business and you want to get started in a country, for example, like Colombia, where it's not easy to buy Bitcoin, or LocalBitcoin, Bisq is a really good options to do that, because in Colombia it's not hard, because banks really make it really hard to buy Bitcoin. So, and I think that this can translate to other countries in Africa and Asia also. So yeah. Okay. So I suggest that you keep learning more about Bitcoin, and to be sure that you understand it before you buy it. So I'm gonna give a few recommendations. I recommend but this is like the best book in Bitcoin, and to understand it, it's called The Bitcoin Standard by Seyfen Namos. A really big book, very important. It is an audiobook also, so you can listen to it or read it. It is in Amazon, in Kindle, whatever. And also this guy, Siphon Demos, you can, look for him in YouTube or stuff. He has his own podcast, his own videos. So there are some really good videos. If you don't have time to read the book, try to look for his videos in YouTube and stuff to learn more about Bitcoin, and follow him on Twitter. There are other good things that I recommend. So, for example, to understand more about money, banking, and central banking, that it's really important to understand why Bitcoin is good and what is good money, what is not good money. And I recommend this video on YouTube called Devaluation of Money, Banking and Central Banking by Professor Lawrence H. White. He's a professor at the University of George Mason, one of the experts in money. Excellent, just excellent. So go to YouTube and look for it. Another really good one is Milton Friedman and for his series Free to Choose, How to Cure Inflation. So you can look the video just by looking. This is the name of the video, Free to Choose in 1980, volume 09, How to Cure Inflation. And it's in YouTube. So go in YouTube and look for it. And it's really important to understand, inflation, understand why inflation happens, and what Bitcoin has a really tries to solve that, right? I also, I don't want you to just read things that, let's say, are about money and inflation, or things that are just more like let's say, talk about, or are more, how to say it, that, support Bitcoin. But it's also good to hear arguments against Bitcoin. So I recommend this really good debate. Can Bitcoin become the world's money? There's a debate between, John Vallis and Professor Lawrence White from the University of George Mason that I previously mentioned. And they debate about why Bitcoin could be the world's money, or why not. So in this video, basically, John Vallis is going to be defending Bitcoin, and Professor Lawrence White is going to, let's say, be the devil's advocate in this case. So guys, thank you for joining, and we really appreciate it. Your time. Please share comments, what you like, what you don't like. If you want me to create, if you have questions about Bitcoin, if you want me to create a new video, or talk about any new topics about the webinar, it can be Bitcoin or something different, just tell me, put in the comments, and I will read all of the comments. So thank you very much for taking the time to watch. And I also want to recognize, because some of the slides related to money were taken off the lecture from Dr. Lawrence H. White, an expert in the topic of money and economics. And guys, that's all. Thank you.